See what else do we got. All right, Music News Power Hour is live on the video. We have a special announcement, but we can't make that announcement just yet. But everybody, welcome. Happy Monday. Great to see some familiar faces here. We are going to start seeing a lot of these new icons again, the Clubhouse new icons, because Android is coming. So we're going to be welcoming a lot of people over the week. And let's start pinging some people up that we know, some of our regulars that want to, and just come on to the stage if you want to talk about something. And we are going to get going. Angela, how was your weekend? Oh, I think Angela is muted. Angela. Somebody wake up Angela. She was just in the other room, so we're going into the countdown.
I'm here. Can you hear me now?
We hear you now, and we are into the countdown. Welcome to today's Music News Power Hour.
How you doing? Welcome to the Music News Power Hour here on the Music Industry City Broadcast Network. And today we are going to talk about Believe going public. DistroKid distributes 30 to 40% of all new music. NFTs are exploiting artists. Billboard and Twitter's new charts. And Clubhouse launches on Android. Plus your daily Spotify update. It's just another Manic Monday. We have a lot to discuss, but first, we have an announcement to make. And that announcement, and I'm going to put Eli up on the video screen here because we are doing this live stream. And Eli.
This is so exciting. We want to announce that we have a new member of the Music News Power Hour team. We want to welcome our UK correspondent, Angela, to the mod squad of Music News Power Hour. She's going to get her green bean. She's going to join the moderators at the top of the Clubhouse discussion, and she's going to be in the Music News Power Hour with us, helping us stay current and making sure that we cover all the UK music news that's important for us to know. Welcome, Angela. Everybody, give her a round of applause.
Woohoo! And PTR, because Angela has the green bean.
I feel so healthy all of a sudden.
Good.
So thanks you, Angela. This is great. It was a great contributor, and we're like, it's time to make this official. So everybody welcome Angela. And with that being said, Eli, why don't we kick off and start with today's day in history? I'll let you take it away.
Let's go ahead and get started. It is just another Manic Monday, but we've got a lot to talk about here. We want to welcome all of our Android users who are joining us on Clubhouse and all of our streaming viewers who are joining us around the world. Let's get started. Today, we remember from May 10th, 1999, the death of American singer, songwriter, poet, cartoonist, screenwriter, and author of children's books, Shel Silverstein, who died of a heart attack aged 57. Also on this day, 2020, last year, British bass guitarist John Mackenzie died. He was a member of such bands as Global Village Trucking Company and Man, and played on numerous singles, notably for the Eurythmics, which you may have heard him on. He also played for the Pretenders and Alison Moyet. Happy birthday today from 1935, American musician and composer Julius Wechter. He composed the song Spanish Flea for Herb Alpert and was the leader of the Baja Marimba Band. Also born this day, 1946, Donovan, Scottish singer, songwriter, and guitarist. Born this day, 1957, John Ritchie, also known as Sid Vicious, come on now, bass and vocals for the Sex Pistols. Also born the same day, the same year, 1957, Carl Hyde from British electronic music group Underworld. And born on this day, 1960, Irish singer-songwriter Paul Houston, known as Bono of U2. Happy birthday. Moving on this day in history, the Silver Beatles, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, Stuart Sutcliffe, and Tommy Moore, auditioned for promoter Larry Parnes and singer Billy Fury for a job as Fury's backing band. Parnes was also looking for backing bands for his lesser-known acts, and the Silver Beatles were selected as a backing group for singer Johnny Gentle's upcoming tour of Scotland. The group had changed its name from Beatles, with a different spelling, Beatles, from that to the Silver Beatles. I love all the different spellings of Beatles here. This change happened after Brian Kesser of Cass and the Casanovas remarked that this misspelling of the name was quote unquote ridiculous. He suggested they use the name Long John and the Silver Beatles, but John Lennon refused to be referred to as Long John. Understandable, right? On this day, 1969, the Turtles gave a special performance at the White House as guests of Tricia Nixon. Stories circulate concerning members of the group allegedly snorted cocaine on Abraham Lincoln's desk. Very rock star. On this day, 1985, all-girl group The Go-Go's announced they were breaking up. The members went on to enjoy solo success. Belinda Carlisle and Jane Wiedlin and the group reformed in the late 1990s. On this day, May 10th, 2000, Bobby Brown was arrested at Newark Airport, New Jersey, for breaking his probation order. He had been wanted in Florida since 1999, when his probation officer reported that a urine test proved positive for cocaine use. And on this day, 2010, New York City's Apollo Theater began installing bronze plaques on the sidewalk outside of the Apollo, outside of the building. This is a building where legends who had close ties to the theater had performed. Among the first to be honored were James Brown, Michael Jackson, Smokey Robinson, and the one and only Ella Fitzgerald. On this day, 2010, at the Apollo Theater in New York City. And that's it for On This Day. Back over to you, Peter.
Right on. Thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, snorting cocaine off Abraham Lincoln's desk. I'm sure some presidents have done that. Probably FDR. Wasn't FDR? Didn't they say he used to do coke?
I guess anything's possible,
Yeah.
but I don't think it gets much more rock star than that. You know?
Nah, I don't think so either. So thank you for that, Eli. All right, so we're going to get to in just a moment. I do want to say hi to Buzz. That's so what's up, Buzz, over in the live stream, and everybody else that's tuning in there. So this is where we scour the World Wide Web for music business news that we think should be open for discussion. We're going to start that in just a second. But how this works is we read key sections from articles for the first 20, 30 minutes or so. We open the stage for continued discussion. So if there's something you want to comment about, feel free to raise your hand to come up to the stage, and that also goes for people up on our audience. So I usually give a little pause after an article before moving on. So for a quick little discussion. And what we do for the back half hour is we open it up as an industry roundtable. So again, people can raise their hand, come to the stage if there's something you want to talk about, or if there's something you feel we missed, or if there's a topic that we discussed that you want to have a deeper dive into. So, and again, if you are following this, if you're enjoying this, you can go to musicindustrycity.com to get the weekly schedule and updates, and also our show notes, and where you can follow all the headlines. So we put this into our show notes, all the articles that we cover for the week, and then we get up to the Friday week in review. And that is also at musicindustrycity.com. Click on the Clubhouse Information Center graphic, and that'll take you to the show notes. You can also see the link in my bio. And with that being said, let's get to it. All right, we start this one off from Music Business Worldwide, and this one is TuneCore owner Believe aims to raise 500 million euros as it begins IPO process in France. So we have seen about the big money IPOs making waves in the music industry, with Universal set to go public in Amsterdam in the coming months. And now they're talking about the Paris headquartered Believe, which the other day has confirmed that it's taken the first official step to float in its home nation. Like Universal, Believe has chosen Europe for its arrival on the stock exchange. The French company has just had its registration document to float on the Paris Euronext approved by the French Autorité des Marchés Financiers, the AMF. As part of the contemplated IPO, Believe, a label and artist services company and the owner of TuneCore, tends to raise approximately $608 million, that's U.S. dollars, to finance its growth strategy. In a media release issued today, Believe confirmed it is, quote, fast-growing and profitable company that generated 728 million euros in digital revenues in 2020 and 441 million euros of consolidated revenues in the same year. So this is, as we are following everything that's going on, I just want to kind of point this one out here. They're saying, believe that also that in 2018 to 2020, its digital music sales increased by over 54%. And it added that this represented a compound annual growth of 24% versus a compound annual growth of 7.6% for the recorded music market. So they're leveraging that tidbit of information, and they're looking to take that for the IPO. All right. On top of that, with other distribution platforms, we're going to go over to Musically, and this is DistroKid says it distributes 30 to 40% of all new music. DistroKid announced an update of its Splits royalty distribution service on Friday, but what's even more interesting is a claim made toward the end of the announcement about the distributor scale overall. The quote is, it is estimated that 30 to 40% of all new music in the world is distributed by DistroKid, with the company ingesting and processing more than 35,000 new tracks every day, claimed the company, adding that its catalog now comprises nearly 20 million tracks from more than 2 million artists. It's certainly big, although the company has not thus far shared deeper stats on how many streams that catalog is generating, or equally usefully, any data on how that catalog looks in terms of its fat head, tracks doing lots of streams and thus the bulk of the revenue, and its long tails, tracks that are not. All right, so they're saying the DistroKid has certainly grown its client base. In October 2018, it had more than 250,000 artists in its books, and that's also the month when it raised significant investment from a number of VC firms. Okay, and then as of Friday's main announcement, Splits is a feature where DistroKid artists can automatically split their royalties with their collaborators, from musicians and producers to photographers and investors. What new is recoupment? The ability to pay some of those people before the actual split, for example, to cover expenses. And the article wraps up, useful for sure, but it's DistroKid's growth, its Spotify relationship, and the bigger picture of the relationships between distributors and DSPs that made it their lead story. So there's plenty to ponder about where this all leads in the upcoming years. We look at, Spotify, they're, getting in bed with DistroKid years ago. They talk about 35,000 new tracks are ingested and processed every day. Spotify claims that 60,000 are uploaded every day to Spotify. So if anybody has any thoughts on this one or anything on distribution, feel free to chime in. All right, that being said, we are going to move over to this one. Cox goes legal over BMG's takedown notices and an old email address. All right, so for all of us fans of copyright safe harbor legalities, and you're definitely in that gang, the big bust up between BMG and its U.S. internet service provider Cox Communications was a key case. Yes, it ultimately ended in an out-of-court settlement after appeals judges ordered a retrial on the basis of some tedious technicalities. However, the same appeals judgment pretty much upheld the conclusion of the lower court. That being that Cox had a deliberately shoddy system for dealing with repeat infringers among its customer base, as such, should not enjoy any of that safe harbor protection under U.S. law, which in turn means it can be held liable for the copyright infringement of its users. On the back of that conclusion, the majors got their lawyers on the case and won a neat $1 billion in damages. A number of other U.S. ISPs are also now fighting similar litigation from the major record companies as their U.S. trade body. So they're back to note that BMG versus Cox is back on. Well, this time it's the other way around, Cox versus BMG, because the net firm has gone to court to formally moan about the takedown request that the music firm and its anti-piracy agency Rights Corp continue to send Cox headquarters relating to infringing content on all its networks. Well, technically, they're moaning about the email address Rights Corp is using. Quote, in 2017, Cox changed the address for its registered agent from abuse@cox.net to coxdmca@cox.net, the new lawsuit states. Quote, Cox updated its website and the directory on the U.S. Copyright Office website to reflect this change. Immediately thereafter, virtually every notice sender except for Rights Corp began to send notices to the updated address. All right, so this is it goes on. This is a complete music update, and of course, you can find these headlines in our show notes at musicindustrycity.com. Click on the Clubhouse Information Center graphic. So, what this it goes on deeper, but really, what it comes down to is saying that Rights Corp is still sending to the old email address and are complaining about it and filing a lawsuit. And then Cox is like, "Well, we already told you, and we filed this, and we did this properly. It's not our fault that you can't read." There's much more to it, but when it comes down to everything over an email address. Moving along on complete music update, the PRS proposes revised live stream license after call for views, but still criticized by artists and managers. We talked about this a little bit last week, and we're going to have a little bit more. So this is saying the UK Collection Society PRS posted an update about its new license for live stream shows, confirming that it would be offering a discount for any live streams that have taken place during the COVID-19 shutdown. Though, compared to what was first proposed last year, that discount means the starting rate goes from 8% to 10%, which is an unusual kind of discount, meaning plenty of managers, artists, and promoters are unhappy with the latest proposals. So it goes on to a little bit more talking about live stream and how the promoters' shows would go about getting a license covering the songs right that would be exploited through those live stream performances. And that resulted in a debate over to what extent a live stream is a live show and to what extent it is a stream. So when it comes to song rights, live shows are generally licensed through the collective licensing system, which means in the UK, promoters get a license from PRS with the basic rate of being around 4% of ticket revenues. However, with stream licenses are variously issued by both collection societies. In the UK, that would be PRS and MCPS, and music publishers with a rate more like 15% of any revenue linked to a song. So that's quite a difference in terms of complexity and price. So this goes on, talking about the VAT tax, and the society said it wouldn't actively pursue artists and promoters who staged smaller shows of this kind during COVID shutdown, even if technically that meant they had been unlicensed. There's a lot more to this. It goes in it's a very detailed article. If you are following this and you are over there, I encourage you to take a look. It's from Complete Music Update. And what determines what is a stream and what is a live show? That is a great question.
Yeah, Peter, I think part of the sort of discussion about this is, one, they didn't actually do a lot of outreach to the music community at large to find out what they were really looking at as far as who was going to be doing what and who was planning what and how it was all going to be arranged. And it's not as though they didn't have time. We're talking about a year here or more. And also the sort of sweet spots seem to be if the event was going to make £500 in ticket sales, £50,000 in ticket sales, or £400,000 in ticket sales. And those are massive jumps with not much sort of leeway given in between them and not much guidance as opposed to whether they'd be playing a flat rate or if it would be based on a percentage. And like you say, that those discounts and the percentage actually worked out that from the original offer that they suggested, anybody making in the neighborhood of £50,000 would have just actually taken a hit by being issued this discount as a result of all of the changes and but what about us? But what about us? So it's definitely hotly debated, and I think we're going to be seeing it soon. But I think the key takeaway is over here where there's a lot of flags being raised and a lot of arms being waved about paying artists properly, making sure that everybody gets their money, and the legislation around that. So the fact that the music community at large isn't letting them sleep on this is really what's important.
There is a lot to unpack, and it's the complexities. You're talking about, it's that, and then there's the VAT tax, because they were talking about the VAT tax, like lowering that, and it's just like, how do they come up with, because licensing in the UK is different than licensing in the US, and even when it comes to like sync licensing or like television, film, things like that. So there's different licenses. Blanket licensing, there's different areas. It's the complexity of it is what is really holding this up.
Don't get me started. The article itself even goes on to include the fact that there are all these global organizations, PROs, that then have to find some way to exchange. Because if the show takes place in the UK, you're obviously not turning up the way you would from around the corner. You could be watching it from anywhere, and then as a result of that, whose job is it to report it and make payments? And it said something like 54% of the complaints that were presented were because artists were saying, well, somebody else is playing a show and playing my song, so shouldn't I get paid for that on the back of it? And if you had no idea that was happening, whose job is it to monitor it? It's a big old mess, but at least they're starting to sift through it.
Yeah, and with reciprocal agreements between the other PRs, that's a great point, because what is it determining? So that you're going to have different licensing arguments there, under classification.
Exactly right.
All right. Well, let's stay on the UK. This one is a musical. This is UK Music criticizes report on race and ethnic disparities. Earlier this year, the UK's Commission on Race and Ethnic Disparities published a report that was heavily criticized for conclusions that played down the impact of structural racism. Now, music industry body UK Music has published a statement adding to the chorus of anger. But we are disappointed by the contents of the Commission on Race and Ethnic Disparities report. The report does not go far enough in recognizing the extent of structural and systemic racism, said UK Music. Vice Chair of Diversity Task Force Paulette Long added her views in a statement, quote, "Systemic racism really does exist in the UK. Our diversity data evidences it. We need to properly acknowledge its existence in the context of real lived experience of ethnic communities in order to take action and respond by way of accountability and investment," she said. She continues to deny its existence is just not acceptable. As a creative sector, the music industry needs to do as much as it can to break down racism and systemic inequality and do it at pace. And this article has links to those the reports and the statements, which you can find at musicindustrycity.com and click on the Clubhouse information center show notes. Angela, I want to go back to you and anything you hear from that or that you have observed.
Well, the report itself is about 258 pages long. So if anybody is, bored and dying to read up, but I'll say that it very succinctly and very badly points out the four key prongs, which are build trust, promote fairness, create agency, and achieve inclusivity, as if all we have to do are these four simple steps and everybody will be equal, which, as any person of color can tell you, that unless you establish an understanding that systemic racism is ingrained into decades upon decades of everything from, how food is moved around to how the arts are perceived to sport. I mean, you name it. Last weekend we had a blackout over here on social media for all of the sports teams because taking a knee before kickoff at all the football matches simply isn't enough when racism is still being sort of flung around at players of color. And I think music is trying to join that cause and suggest that they can do things from a legislative standpoint. But this committee really let down the community because it just made it such a succinct. I mean, even 250 pages for it to be boiled down to just those four things just feels like, well, you're not saying what the elephant in the room is. And until you call it what it is, you can't move forward. And the criticism comes from the victims of the relatives of victims of racist attacks, which obviously it just is a slap in the face to them because they're out here trying to make real cultural change, and this committee, who by the way is not just a bunch of old white guys, rich white guys sitting around, it's women, people of color, people of all backgrounds, they just really missed the mark, and UK Music is really right to point it out.
Yeah, it's something that you really to pay attention to. I'd like to dig into this even a little bit more later on. So thank you for that, Angela. And with that being said, let's get over to Twitter. Let's talk a few articles here about Twitter because there's a lot been happening over there. Besides Spaces, their Clubhouse competitor, there's more to it. And if anybody also wants to join in the conversation or has something they want to chime in about, feel free to raise your hand. So this one is in CompleteMusicUpdate.com. Twitter adds a tip jar for creators. All right, and this starts off with app-based donations, an increasingly important revenue stream for online creators, including some music makers. Twitter last week added a tip jar, making it easier for people to donate to their favorite personalities and creators posting on the platform. Twitter is following the lead of rivals like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, which have all now added donation tools of one form or another, though most often linked to their respective live streaming services. However, unlike its rivals, Twitter isn't getting directly involved in the transaction process, instead just making it easier for people on its platform to direct people to their accounts on other services like PayPal, Venmo, Bandcamp, and Patreon. In a blog post last week, Twitter stated, quote, "The tip jar is an easy way to support the incredible voices that make up the conversation on Twitter. This is a first step in our work to create new ways for people to receive and show support on Twitter with money." Starting today, it added everyone using Twitter in English can send tips to applicable accounts on Twitter for iOS and Android. For now, a limited group of people from around the world who use Twitter in English can add tip jar to their profile and accept tips. This group includes creators, journalists, experts, and nonprofits. Soon, more people will be able to add the tip jar to their profile and will expand on more languages. The inclusion of Bandcamp as a service that tip jar eligible tweeters can link to shows that musicians are among those creators Twitter plans to target. And, of course, Patreon, too, has a sizable number of music makers among its user base. An increasing number of grassroots and independent artists have started utilizing tools of this kind during the COVID shutdown. For any of those artists who regularly use Twitter, the addition of the tip jar may be of value. Although within the music industry at large, which is increasingly vocal about Twitter's lack of music licenses, artists getting some donations from fans is unlikely to placate the most vocal critics. This is, we're starting to see Clubhouse, starting to podcasting. You see a lot of these platforms that are stepping up where to be able to make money in the sense where you weren't able to before. It's good. Is it a business? That's the question. It's like you're going to be relying on the tip economy. In the U.S. here, we are basically all very tip happy, whereas in other places around the world, tipping is very, very minimal or non-existent in some places. And, people on Twitch, musicians over on Twitch been doing live streaming, and there's tipping with bits. They're subscribing to their channel. So there's a lot of different areas, but, can it become something of a business by having tips for longevity?
Well, I think that's kind of related to is there any future in busking? You talk to a busking musician, and I think that's kind of the same sorts of questions, the same sorts of concerns that a busking musician would have are the same sorts of concerns that you might have trying to rely on tips as an income on a social media platform like this. That's my take on it. It's very similar to busking almost.
Right. And the other thing is also, and I don't know much about this, so if anybody has more information, tips, donations, subscriptions, they fall under different categories for tax purposes in the U.S., I believe. Again, that's more of a question.
As far as I know, they do, yes, fall under different categories. They are categorized differently. But the nice thing about accepting tips this way rather than dollar bills in a jar is that I'm guessing there will be metrics at the end of the fiscal year, and the app will help the artists to track their income in ways that maybe they would not be able to if it was dollar bills thrown into a tip jar or the guitar case. So the metrics may kind of help, but there will be different classifications of taxation as far as I'm aware for things like tips versus subscriptions versus 1099 fee that's been guaranteed for an artist. So yeah, there are a lot of gray areas. I think this is new territory.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I mean, there was an app years ago. This probably is around 2014 or 2015, 16. It was called Busker. And that's what they were doing is they were actually going around to the buskers to say live stream your busking and you can get the tips on the platform. I don't I just don't think I think it was either A too soon in the live streaming space. But there was some artists that were doing really well, but there was also that time of, it's like, here, sign up for this platform so you can tip me. I think the marketing behind it was incorrect in that sense where it's like, oh, people were using it as marketing. It's like, oh, sign up for this app, get an account. And it really wasn't getting to the mass audience. It was just getting to the fellow musicians and buskers that were using it. So they were kind of just tipping each other. So it just became a circular cash flow inside the app.
It was what do they call that? A multi-level marketing company? Yeah, it was just a big
A
MLM.
pyramid scheme.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they were intending to do that, but it was kind of like, here, follow me and tip. I mean, there was, I know one woman that she was on the Santa Monica Pier all the time. She would live stream it. It was fantastic, and she did make good money live streaming and on the pier. And I think she was also in talks with some record labels after that. But let's continue with the tech news and carrying the Twitter theme over. And that is from last week. We didn't really talk about this, but I just wanted to bring this in since we were talking about Twitter. Is Billboard and Twitter to launch hot trending chart tracking music buzz online. One starts off. Billboard and Twitter have partnered on a first-of-its-kind Billboard chart that will showcase the most talked-about songs on the social media platform. It was announced at Wednesday at Twitter's annual New Fronts presentation. Named Billboard Hot Trending, the chart will track music-related trends and conversations in real time across Twitter, including buzz around new releases, award show and festival moments, music nostalgia threads, and more. According to Twitter head of entertainment partnership Sarah Rosen, music is the most talked about topic on the social platform worldwide. Unlike existing Billboard charts that update weekly, Billboard Hot Trending will refresh every 24 hours to capture the latest music-focused conversations happening on the platform. The chart is also unique in that it tracks what songs people are talking about, not necessarily what they're listening to. Advertisers can take advantage of Billboard Hot Trending via innovative ad formats that will live on Twitter and across Billboard properties. The chart will be supported with video content, consistent editorial coverage, and organic support from A-list music stars. Three things there I kind of want to just point out. Is that they state it's not that the chart is unique, that it tracks what songs people are talking about, not necessarily what they're listening to. So when it comes to a song, and we actually talk about this a little later, is what happens if a song or a hashtag of a song is the same name? Things like that. What if they just misspell it? And what if they just have remixes? I also like this thing is like one of the things they really wanted to point out is how advertisers can take advantage of the Billboard Hot Trending chart. And the chart will be supported with video content, considering editorial coverage and organic support from A-list music stars. I'm not quite sure what that means. If anybody has some other information, feel free to chime in, raise your hand, let us know. So is it just going to be like this engaged kind of event every day? And yeah, I had no idea that music was the most talked about topic on the social platform worldwide. I mean, probably if you took out anything related to BTS, that might change things, or K-pop. So, that might like lower it. I mean, but because there's so many references that cross over too. So you could be talking about gaming, music, celebrity, music. So there's a lot of crossover discussion there.
We just had a conversation earlier about what the words plug in mean to different people. Different things mean different things everywhere you go.
Exactly.
And don't forget, when Twitter was first launched, it was heavily marketed towards record labels and musicians to to be able to include, links to define their music. So I think they may have just started there because it was just an organic community that has already been familiar with how to sort of, market itself that way. And perhaps it just grew and grew on the back of that.
Yeah, because there was Twitter. I mean, Twitter Music, which was that, let's say, failure. I mean, it tried.
That went the way of Google Glass, I think. It was a good
Yeah,
idea, but not
Crystal
a good idea.
Pepsi, yeah.
it was a good idea at the time. All right, with that being said, I'm going to pass the mic over to Eli with your weather update.
All right, we want to welcome all of our Android users who are now joining us on Clubhouse. Welcome to the Clubhouse room. Welcome to the stream, and hello to all of our viewers who are watching around the world. We're going to check in with your local weather right now, taking a look at your local weather. If you find that rainy days and Mondays get you down, you may need to turn off the Carpenters records. Back over to you, Peter.
Oh, that was a good one. I like that. A little more Carpenters. Can't Stop Dancing just because the music's gone. Oh, no, that wasn't Carpenters. That was Captain and Tennille. Carpenters, yeah. Wow. I just had a brain. That was, whoa.
It's Monday. It's Monday.
Yeah.
You know?
Was Close to You the Carpenters? Eli, ready
Yes.
for the duet? Ready, go.
Just like me. No, I can't do it.
Okay, all right. Hey, we're going to get a DMCA takedown notice. Please stop. Right on. All right, so we are going to move on to, this one is in Billboard, and we have added this into the show note resources as well, because you can find this article in our show notes under resources as well, because it's very important. And again, you can find all our show notes at musicindustrycity.com. Click on the Clubhouse Information Center logo graphic, and you can get the access to the show notes. We update this every day with the newsroom, so you can follow along with the headlines and links to the articles. We also have show notes and resources. So if there is something for musicians and for business, we add resources in there, whether it's discussed in this room or our Good Day Music World show every Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Plus, we added playlists. So that's a new thing that we've added at Music Industry City. So every Friday in our Good Day Music room, we everybody shouts out an artist that they think people should be listening to, and we create a playlist on Spotify, so you can find Music Industry City on Spotify. There's a podcast, just so you know, there's a podcast there, and there's also a profile. So if you want to follow the playlist, click on the profile. That's the circular one. But hey, if you want to follow the podcast, you can do that too. That's the square logo. And with that being said, this is from Billboard, and it is a guide to mental health resources for music professionals. And it's they're constantly updating this one. So being that May is Mental Health Awareness Month, designated each year as a period to spread awareness and education about the importance of mental health care in the U.S., the month has taken on added importance during the ongoing pandemic, during which millions of musicians and other music industry workers have been cut off from their livelihoods during the widespread shutdown of live events. While mental health care is critically important for music workers even in a normal year, COVID-19 has profound effects on the mental wellness of those most impacted. According to a 2020 Wellness and Music Survey, a report published by the Recording Academy's charitable arm Music Cares, 26% of those surveyed reported moderate to severe levels of depression last year, while 53% say they were unable to receive mental health counseling due to lack of funds. Those statistics point to an increased need for mental health resources for music industry workers this year and beyond. Below, Billboard has compiled a list of resources for those suffering from depression, anxiety, and other negative mental health effects, many of them tailored specifically for those working in the industry. So I'm not going to go through the whole list here, but just some that they talk about here is the Actors Fund, Backline, and they go on Behind the Scenes, Finessed Media, Help Pro, which is entertainment industry therapist finder, and Music Cares, the Music Health Alliance, Music Industries Therapist Collective, Nucci Space, Record Union, The Road to Rehab, Silence the Shame, Sims Foundation, and that wraps up their list there. So you can find this article in the show notes as well, and on Billboard. Let's get into live music. Red Rocks Amphitheater rumored to host full capacity shows in July. This is from EDM.com. And Red Rocks was early out of the gate. We reported weeks and weeks ago that they were talking about May events and getting things going. So Colorado Red Rocks Amphitheater may very well see shows at full capacity within just a couple of months. The revelation that the open-air venue could reach full capacity starting in July came from a tweet made by folk rock band the Avett Brothers. The group took to social media to share an update with the fans, and therein mentioned that they had only agreed to play the venue if organizers allowed it to operate at capacity. The venue holds just shy of 10,000 attendees. The band mentioned that so far they have been assured by organizers that this request will be honored. The Avett Brothers are slated to play a 3-day run at the venue this summer from July 9th to July 11th. Red Rocks received approval from the state to begin hosting shows in April at a limited 2,500 person capacity. So a full capacity show taking place just 2 months from now will mark a dramatic step forward in reopening. Around 40% of Colorado's population has received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine thus far. So if the trajectory continues, it seems likely that Red Rocks will be back to normal sooner than later. In the immediate short term, dance music heavyweights Zoo and Diplo are taking on the venue, while shows Zed's Dead, Rufus Soul, and Lose a Child pepper late summer months. And going from live into where we are at this moment, Clubhouse. This one from TechCrunch. Clubhouse finally launches its Android app. So welcome anybody that is new, that's coming in with the Android app. We're going to start seeing a lot of the welcome party icons again soon enough. And is it just in time or is it too late? I think that is the gist of many of these articles that you're seeing out there. And this one starts off, Clubhouse finally has an Android app that you can download from the Play Store, provided you live in the U.S. The voice-based social network launched its beta Android app on Play Store for users in the U.S. on Sunday and said it will gradually make the new app available in other English-speaking countries and then the rest of the world. The social network, valued at about $4 billion in its most recent fundraise, launched an iPhone audio app only last year, as we all know. And they began developing the Android app early this year and started to test the beta version externally this month. In a town hall earlier Sunday, the startup said availability on Android has been most requested product feature. To quote, "Our plan over the next few weeks is to collect feedback from the community, fix any issues we see, and work to add a few final features like payments and club creation before rolling it out more broadly," the team wrote. And they talk about the figures here, and there is a chart of the downloads from the App Store. Clubhouse download figures across some of its popular markets, according to estimates by mobile insight firm AppMagic. The Clubhouse's precise download figures from other mobile insight firms vary. They all agree that Clubhouse's app's popularity has dropped in recent months. As Clubhouse struggles to maintain its growth, data from mobile insight firms suggests that Clubhouse installs have drastically dropped in recent months. The Android app could prove pivotal in boosting the startup's reach across the globe. Clubhouse could potentially, on paper, also supercharge its growth by allowing any user to join the service without an invitation, but the startup said retaining the waitlist and invite system is part of its effort to, quote, keep the growth measured. Clubhouse has faced several moderation challenges in recent months. Clubhouse launch on Android comes at a time when scores of technology giants, including Facebook, Twitter, Discord, Spotify, Reddit, and Microsoft's LinkedIn, have either launched their similar offerings or announced plans to do so. Twitter's clone of Clubhouse called Spaces has emerged as one of the biggest competitors and unplanned service. Twitter Spaces, available on Android as well, hosted by a high-profile Indian startup founder early Sunday, attracted hundreds of listeners within a few minutes. So they're already starting to show comparisons there. And the Clubhouse team continues, quote, "As we head into the summer and continue to scale out the back end, we plan to begin opening up even further, welcoming millions more people from the iOS waitlist, expanding language support, and adding more accessibility features so that people worldwide can experience Clubhouse in a way that feels native to them." And Clubhouse, to note, Clubhouse's beta Android app currently lacks a number of features, such as the ability to follow a topic, in-app translations, localization, ability to create or manage a club, link Twitter and Instagram profiles, payments, as well as the ability to change the profile name or username. With Android, we believe that Clubhouse will feel more complete, read the blog post. So we look forward to the green texting bubble crew. Welcome to the party. We're gonna. It's a lot of fun. We have a lot going on here. Any thoughts on this, Eli?
I was just going to say that with all the features that are missing on the Android app, does it feel like the Android app was ready? Did they release it before it was ready with all these missing features? They seem kind of bit like basic features. The ability to link your contact information, your social media is critical on Clubhouse because there is no messaging platform on the Clubhouse app. So you can't message another user on Clubhouse, and for Android users who cannot connect their social media, they're going to have to just type their social media handle into their Clubhouse bio and hope that someone copies and pastes it correctly. It sounds like maybe the Android app wasn't quite ready yet. I don't know. What's everyone else think?
Hey, Eli, Peter.
Hey, Andy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
hi,
was thinking.
Andy.
Hey, I was actually thinking exactly the same thing. It feels like it would be easier to list the things that were there, because that seems like a long list of things that aren't there. It'd be interesting to talk to people who actually join with Android. I don't actually know anybody yet, but it'll be interesting to find out what their experience is, because it certainly feels like that could be a very, very limited experience, like a listen in kind of thing rather than an actively participate kind of approach.
Yeah, exactly. And Andy, I wanted to say, if you have friends who are Android users, it's okay. You're in a safe space to say that your friends are Android users, that you're friends with some Android users. It's okay.
I, I'm not ready to do that yet. I'm sorry.
Speak for yourself, Eli.
It's like, all the iPhone elitists are going to be groaning, and they're going to be able to say, "Oh, I see you're new, and you're an Android user because you don't have any of your accounts linked and everything like that." So we could see that happening. I mean, come on, everybody has to be an elitist. I mean, there's even the people who get the Pfizer dose are considered. They're like, "Oh, I got the Pfizer dose. Oh, you got Johnson & Johnson? Yeah, I got the Pfizer."
Are we going to make the new Android users on Clubhouse wear an A or something weird? I don't know.
I did notice something though just a moment ago because I'm a person that likes to change subtle things about my bio once in a while, and I think with the Android rollout, I did just notice that when I tried to make changes, it doesn't let me, and it says try a shorter bio, thanks, and then doesn't let me. So if you have a relatively long bio like mine, go in there and actually try and edit it, and it won't let you if it's too long.
That's interesting. There's a lot of changes that are going on, and as a manager of a club, it's confusing. They tell you like you updated to the latest app, and they'll say, "Here's what we did," but they don't tell you everything they did. So it's always an experiment and a game of trying to like figure out what's changed. There's still lots of issues. I mean, this is something that we come across from the point that, um, you know is this thing with Android. It sounds like, not all the ingredients were in there when they put the cake in the oven, but they needed to get the cake out to the table because of what's been happening. And I mean, they went from, December, then 1.2 million users in January to 10 million in February. And then by March, it was sort of seeing tails off. And then April dropped below 100, went to 790,000 downloads in the App Store, saying we can see this. Everybody has witnessed this on Clubhouse, that there is less people on here. We just had to talk about this in the Good Day Music World room earlier. And also the fact that people are getting back to work. And so when they come on, like Andy said here, is like when they come on, is this something that is going to be more of a challenge, that people are getting back to work, they're not going to want to dig in, and if they don't have the functionality, is that going to is it sticky enough for them to stay around?
I think it's proved to be a brilliant way of being able to network and meet people in your industry. So the fact that you can't actually link those any of the other buyers, and as Eli said, the fact that you can't actually then do it in such a way, because I don't know whether you guys can, but I can't actually select anything from somebody's bio and copy and paste it.
Yeah.
So you're literally relying on somebody literally remembering it and typing it into somebody, or swapping between apps to type it in. So it feels like it could be the one huge benefit you get from Clubhouse, or the one huge benefit I found from Clubhouse from the community point of view, is lost. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it pads out. But I need to find some Android users to find out.
Well, and I think it's interesting too that you can't update your username. How many of us have joined a new social media app or platform, entered a username, and then when we start using the app, we discover all of a sudden, oh snap, like no one uses their real name on this platform. I better change my username to something else. For example, on Clubhouse, a friend of mine joined Clubhouse and asked, should I generate a username or should I use my real name? And I recommended using your real name on Clubhouse, but you don't do that on Instagram. So how often have you signed up for a social media platform with one username that you thought was appropriate, and then immediately after joining discovered you wanted to change your username? Android users, it sounds like, don't even have that option. They're just stuck with whatever username they generated initially. From my understanding of this article, that seems very strange.
We're going to see a lot of Hot Mama 77 or Country Boy 22 or whatever turning up on Clubhouse. I can't wait till I can say, hi, Country Boy, welcome to the room.
Hey, Atlanta girl with 17 R's, how you doing?
I had a professor in college. Well, actually, it was when I was getting my master's, and she put her email on the board on the chalkboard, and it was something like Tinker something, not Tinker Bell, like something 77 at AOL.com, and I was like, I need to withdraw from this class. I'm like, I cannot have a professor that has an AOL account with like these weird. I just can't.
At least it wasn't at a CompuServe USA email.
Well, we got a couple more things, but does anybody want to, before we go over to the Spotify spot, does anybody have anything that they want to chime in? Because we do have about 8 minutes left in the room. We had a lot to read today. A lot of little things, not something super exciting, but a lot of little things to cover. Does anybody had something that they wanted to chime in about any of those reads, or should I just move on to the Spotify spot? I think we have our answer.
No love? Okay, looks like we're moving on to the Spotify spot, the big green dot. It hits the spot. We're moving into our final section of headlines here before we discuss everything that we've covered today, and we've covered a lot. You can visit musicindustrycity.com to learn more about any of the articles that we've covered today. Click on the Clubhouse graphic and you can see all of the articles that we discovered. Read more, learn more at musicindustrycity.com. If you're in the audience, you can raise your hands to contribute to the conversation. And if you're tuning in on stream, you can contribute in the chat. Let us know if there's something you'd like to discuss or if there's an article that we didn't cover as we read through the headlines. Put your hands up, which means something different here than it does in the nightclub. Contribute in the chat and let us know what you'd like to contribute to the discussion. We're going to move on now to the Spotify spot. Just a couple more headlines and we'll open up our discussion here in the final few moments of today's Music News Power Hour. Back to you, Peter.
Right on. Thank you, Eli. All right, this one is from slate.com. This is it's an interesting article, and it goes in depth. There's quite a number of examples, so I'm not going to go through all of them. But this ties into, there's earlier in the show when we were talking about Twitter and the Billboard charts. And it wasn't just that they were tracking not just the uniqueness of it wasn't that they were tracking like the plays on Twitter. It was who were talking about the song. So his question is like, well, first question came to mind. It's like, well, what if there is multiple songs with the same name? How are they tracking this? They might not have to even say like the artist. They might just say, oh, this is a great song. So this is an interesting article. It's titled "The Artist Imposters of Spotify." And in this starts off, so it speaks from the writer's experience. And so it starts off, if you're a West Coast rap fan, you may have noticed that a new DJ Quick album appeared on Spotify in December. It might have popped up on your release radar, the weekly personalized playlist of new music from artists you already listened to, or maybe you saw it on Quick's verified Spotify profile. Either way, the moment you hit play, you would have realized this is fake as hell. For one thing, the vocals are in Spanish, a language DJ Quick doesn't rap in. The 22 tracks are listed in alphabetical order, starting with 3 and I, and ending in zombies, a strange choice. The album cover doesn't show Quick's face, though most of his albums do. The copyright at the bottom of the album's page attributes the record to DJ Quick instead of a record label. Finally, you have ears. You know what DJ Quick sounds like, and this isn't DJ Quick no matter what Release Radar says. And it goes on, this happens a lot on Spotify, which features music from more than 1 million artists, some of whom share the same name. These musicians usually have distinct profile pages, but sometimes doppelgangers creep into the discographies of already established artists in a suspicious-looking way. And I've begun to wonder some of these doubles are doing it on purpose. The fake DJ Quick didn't last long. The new album was removed from the Real Rappers page within a few weeks. It's possible a fan reported the issue to Spotify, which also helps creators quickly deal with the logistical troubles caused by other artists with the same name. But the restoration of order didn't erase the feeling that inside Spotify's borderless musical landscape, you're never more than a playlist transition away from a fake out, that there's already someone trying to game the system. They talk about, Electric Light Orchestra. And one of the loving editors knows in November that Spotify briefly thought that Electric Light Orchestra was actually the name of an auto-tune happy rapper with a single titled Dead Wrong. The rapper's single and grainy photo were briefly featured on the page for the actual 70s group, though now he's just known as ELO, which is EL''O. Like with DJ Quick, the copyright for the single feature ELO's name, no label attached. So it goes on to different one. They talk about Diana Ross. And you do a search and you have these different albums and overviews from Diana Ross. Then there's talking about one was labeled Star Records, and turns out there's a Star Records, a Philippine-based record label, and the music company and its subsidiaries represent several prominent Filipino musicians and run multiple labels. It also previously had a video branch that produced video karaoke clips, and there's a karaoke competition for the Star Records on Discogs. So it gets even more confusing when you start tying in that they're associated with the label, and the labels have other artists on there. So it goes into a lot here. It's really interesting to see. And I don't know, searching, we do this for our playlist, and sometimes I'm searching artists, and it takes us a little while. And, it's like, well, which is the real one, especially when I don't know the artist's name. And so it's an interesting read. Does anybody else have any kind of experience that have maybe dealt with coming across, or maybe had their artist, or dealt with coming across an artist that they were looking up and it's like, oh wait, this isn't the right one, or hear about this kind of people abusing the system by coming up with artist names? Because things like on Instagram, you can get shadow banned for certain hashtags, and one of them is Beyonce, because basically people were just jumping on, trending just because they were tagging Beyonce.
It's something that I've been working with for quite a while now, actually, Peter. It's building a platform on top of a music service. You kind of have to deal with these idiosyncrasies, and it actually works in a number of different ways. I've found sometimes you actually get the opposite, where you'll get one artist who will actually be represented multiple times. In other words, they've got multiple accounts, so you'll actually have you can't get that one artist's full catalog from that one account. You actually have to go to 2 or 3 different names of that account to get the full catalog. But there's famous ones, like there was a Nirvana around in the 70s before Nirvana. So if you search Nirvana, you get both. And because how do you decide which one the person's searching for, unless you sort of have some kind of AI deeply diving into what they've listened to before? But even that, you may still be looking for the Nirvana from the 70s. So it's a tricky one. I think the IDs having some kind of uniform ID across all services would be the kind of thing that would counter this, so that then you actually are able to delineate them, whether you're on Spotify, on Apple, or YouTube, or wherever. So yeah, it's something that works in a multiple different ways, but I haven't actually heard it being done in a way that they actually try and almost claim ears by impersonating someone. I would hope they would clamp down on them quickly.
Yeah.
That definitely takes some guts to even attempt that.
And one of the
I
other
thought you were
things...
going to bring up the Elvis Costello example, Andy, where Elvis Costello, obviously alone, Elvis Costello and the Attractions, Elvis Costello and the Imposters. If you just type in Elvis Costello on Spotify, you can't get all iterations of his catalog. you only get his one, and then you have to remember that it was an Attractions album or it was an Imposters album or whatever. I'm thinking maybe, I mean, ISNI codes being reset up so that they can correlate to the right person. I mean, you're onto something there with the coding aspect. Maybe that will happen.
And Angela, also, not just Elvis Costello, but George Clinton is another one. You have George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic, George Clinton and Funkadelic, George Clinton and Parliament, the Horny Horns, Bootsy's Rubber Band, and George Clinton is in all of those bands. In that instance, I believe, if I understand correctly, that was done for tax purposes, but the same situation happens with the catalog as well. So anyway, we've covered a lot of headlines today. I want to take just a moment and thank everybody who has tuned in on Clubhouse and who has tuned in streaming with us on stream around the World Wide Web. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for joining our discussion by putting your hands up or dropping a comment in the chat. This has been the Music News Power Hour for this Manic Monday. We are here each weekday, Monday through Friday from 12 to 1 Eastern with all the news that's fit to listen to. And you can join the discussion any weekday 12 to 1 right here at Music News Power Hour, either on Clubhouse or on stream. You can also visit musicindustrycity.com and click on the Clubhouse graphic if you want to learn more about any of the articles that we've covered today or any articles that we have covered recently. We will do a week in review on Friday, so if there's anything we didn't cover or discuss in today's broadcast, you can always join us any weekday, but especially on Friday, where we're going to recap the week and revisit anything that we have missed throughout the week. For my co-host Peter Schwenk, my name is Eli Window, and I want to thank you so much for tuning in with us here at Music News Power Hour. We will be back tomorrow at 12 Eastern, and we hopefully will see you then. Have a great day.
Right on. Thank you, Eli. And also, everybody, give a big shout out and applause to Angela, who is now officially our UK correspondent and co-host for the Music News Power Hour. So thank you, Angela. Great first day, and have an awesome one. And we'll see you all tomorrow, same time, same place. Take it easy, everyone.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Eli. Angela.
Happy Monday, everybody.